right. Today we are talking about Tesla, Lemonade, DOGE, and a little Elon derangement syndrome. And I think there was one more item, Matt. Do you remember what that was?
Grok 3. I'm hearing some weird feedback. I don't know where that's coming from.
Okay.
I'm on the YouTube channel also. I had that pulled up. Okay, sorry. It was very hard to concentrate for a second. My apologies.
That's like a noob thing right there.
It is. Yeah, that's yeah, I'm gonna chalk that up to being sleep deprived from baby number 7 still. So everyone give me a pass on that, please. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Let's start with your Tesla.
Yeah.
You just got a brand new Model X with version 13.
Yep.
You've been seriously jonesing for a Model X for a long time. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so this is your fault. I want to start with that. So I always loved like the Model X, but it's like, oh, it's the older car. It's not worth buying really. And to be honest with you, I didn't really need to upgrade my Model Y. So I had a 2021 Model Y, and I probably wouldn't have upgraded if it weren't for the fact that we're managing other people's money and seeing the pace of improvement on FSD on the version 13 cars with hardware 4, AI 4. You like that is a very important thing. So just as an investor managing other people's money, to me, it was really important to actually understand what was the latest and greatest and be able to kind of feel that so I can have my own kind of neutral analysis of it. So that was kind of prompting me to make what was otherwise an irrational decision for the upgrade, because I mean, the Model X doesn't fit my whole family. The Model Y didn't either. There was really no reason for the upgrade other than to get the AI 4. And then when I was looking at like upgrading to the AI 4 Model Y, it just didn't really make a whole lot of sense to do that upgrade when there weren't very many changes. But the Model X, on the other hand, it's like the suspension, the bigger space for the kids. My wife would enjoy that, driving that a little bit more because it's higher up, which she likes. So all those, kind of little things pushed us to go for the upgrade to something that was somewhat irrational. But man, the improvement in driving capability is very noticeable. So I posted about this a little bit publicly. The overall like experience is just so much different. Part of it is just the suspension and the noise cancellation and the better acoustics in the Model X. It is seriously phenomenal. If anyone watching hasn't tried it out, I would highly recommend it, because it is just like a wonderful experience. You said in the past, Bradford, that it feels like you're just being chauffeured around on this like bed of air, and it really does. Like I was driving with 2 of my kids on one occasion, and they both fell asleep. And then a separate occasion, I had 3 of my kids in, and like they're like, "Oh, it's so comfortable in here. I want to fall asleep." Like they were just talking about how comfortable and like relaxing it was, essentially. And I certainly felt that too. So part of it is just the Model X being, a big upgrade, but then the improvements in the actual driving capability is really phenomenal.
And I'll add that I think the Model X is the ultimate baller car, because you literally can open any of the doors with a button press. Even on your app of your phone, you can be leaving the grocery store or something. You can open all your doors, and they open like this. It's just pretty cool.
It seems gimmicky, but it's really like not, with kids not having to manage the door that kind of opens and like getting the kids in and trying to buckle them while like moving to the side. Like there's a lot of finagling that when you're putting kids in car seats is kind of frustrating. And with the Model X, it really is a much different situation. So yeah, it really is a great car.
So let's talk a little bit about the Model Y. So
peasant car. Now I don't have a peasant mobile, so
similarly for science, I'm going to be getting the new Model Y to see how good it is. I'm going to be leasing it, so it'll be the 3rd Tesla that I'm keeping, the 5th Tesla that I've had overall, and really curious to check it out. We just got word that Tesla China is starting to produce the Model Ys in mass. We'll see what that production rate is like, but Roland had and he's one of the Rebellionaire creators. He does all the charts, the colorful charts. He showed
Eloy, I think it is.
Piloli or something. Yeah.
Yeah. He does great work.
Yeah, so maybe Jordan will find it and put it on the screen in a little while. But the production came down, and so like the Model Y, the production doesn't look that great for this quarter. We've been talking about it a little bit, and in China, the downtime looks like it was like around 6 weeks of the Model Y. I don't know how long they continue to make the old one, but I think it was like since the middle of January they stopped people from buying the old one. So it seems a little bit concerning. So it's Roland Percher at Pilolly on X. And I think what's disappointing about this news is that Tesla China was a real leader as far as like really fast changeovers, and this doesn't seem to be the case this time. What are your thoughts on this, Matt?
Yeah, so we did see there was I think a photo today of some being shipped to Australia. So that was like kind of like the first indication that they're actually leaving the factory in some significant numbers.
Interesting.
But yeah, like that's a lot of downtime. And I agree with you. This is something that I don't think is being fully recognized in the short term. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now, but it still doesn't seem like it's being grasped in a kind of broad-based way, either by bulls or by the kind of analyst community.
Your
I was
best-selling car, your most profitable car, it's going down for improvements. So like the demand for it will be higher than ever, but it isn't being discussed. So it's likely to be misconstrued a bit.
Yeah, and occasionally you and I kind of get branded as like putting out only like catastrophizing, headline grabbing information, but really we're just trying to be nuanced and balanced about this. And I think EPS estimates in particular for Q1 are too high, likely by a factor of 2. I think last I checked, they were coming in around like 58 cents or so. I think we're going to be in the low 20s actually. So it's going to be a significant miss. Like, and to your point, like in the grand scheme of things, Tesla investors really shouldn't care too much about this. But it is definitely going to be a whiff. I shouldn't say definitely, but I really strongly think that it's going to be a whiff, both on production and deliveries, and especially on earnings per share for Q1. And to your point, it's going to get misconstrued. You know, if there's no kind of managing of this message from Tesla ahead of time, which I kind of suspect there's not going to be, then, you know, it's going to be left up to the media and the financial news to essentially kind of parrot what's going on here. And it's going to be like, oh, Elon's getting too involved in politics, and you know, he got another girl pregnant, and he's distracted, and you know, people are boycotting. Like there was this Tesla boycott in Canada over the weekend. I don't know if you saw any of those images. And actually, Simon Hale, another Rebellionaire creator, a great manager out of Canada, somebody wrote "Elon sucks" or "F Elon," I think it was, on his Cybertruck, just like in the snow. So there's a lot of like negative sentiment in pockets of the community, or of the various communities. And so if you kind of couple, you know, these little anecdotal stories like that with a massive miss on deliveries, let's just say, if we ignore production, then yeah, like these stories will write themselves, and the media will get clicks, and it'll get misunderstood.
Yeah, and we've had some clients who were not like all in Rebellionaires with respect to Tesla, who have ordered us to sell Tesla shares, and I'm wondering, you know, after this news, if that'll be the case for more clients. Now we do try and put up a fight to the extent we can. because we don't think it's necessarily the best move long term. But it's pretty extreme. Some of the things we heard, like today, I heard that a client didn't want to see TSLA in his portfolio, and that I can't think of a worse human being than that miserable person. Referring to he who shall not be named, Elon Musk. Yes. It'd be a shame if Elon, solved autonomy and helped save lives through like really safe vehicles and all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there are some points where the actual truth of the matter isn't necessarily relevant. Like,
Yeah.
we've had a lot of conversations with reasonable people who don't like Elon's actions,
Mhm.
but they say, okay, I understand like how I feel about the guy might not be the best indicator of whether this is a good investment or not. And so they've been, kind of trusting our judgment, or at least asking questions, probing questions, which they absolutely should be doing. But there are some people who it's like it's so triggering the things that he's doing that it's like all dissenting opinions get drowned out, and I
Mhm.
just can't hear anything that would talk about Elon in a slightly positive tone, and that's pretty hard to see, because it's like you can just tell a bad decision is being made.
Mhm.
We had something similar, right, where a client ordered us to sell because we're being too risky when Tesla was sub 200. And I think that client ended up leaving us. It's just like there's situations like that that are like you can't do anything, and you accept come
Yeah, a
back
lot of
6 months later and be like, hey, by the way, that was an emotional
yeah.
mistake that you made. And
A lot of times when people order us to sell, they fully make the decision before they talk to us. And granted, they shouldn't have us as their advisor, and make decisions without us, but it can happen from time to time. So sometimes what we do is we let people have their protests, but then we try to come back to them later. Um, so that's the thing. And interesting thing about Doge is these things come out on X. People find old videos where, like, Bill Clinton and Al Gore are championing government efficiency. This was a big initiative for Al Gore, apparently. I had totally forgot about this.
oh, really? I actually remember the balanced budget in Clinton days, and then GW Bush just like nuked it all. It was such a waste.
And apparently, Obama had some government efficiency stuff as well. Um,
Well,
and
yeah, Simpson Bowles, like that one, I remember very vividly as well. It was like this great bipartisan effort. Like it was kind of painful for both sides, but they had
Mhm.
this ridiculous provision where it was like a super majority of the House or the Senate or something like that had to vote to hear it. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be brought forth or something like that. And so it ended up being this totally without teeth recommendation that went nowhere. And it was
Mhm.
just like, I remember watching that and just like wanting to pull my hair out. So I'm like, no, like you guys went through all this hard work. The conservatives are upset. The liberals are upset. Like that's probably you're in a good spot if if that's how
Mhm.
everyone is feeling. Push it forward and let's do what's right for the sake of the company. But instead, I think
Yeah.
the modern monetary theory folks had the day, and unchecked government spending was the plan for the next 10 years.
Uh, And I don't want to be too political too long, but people I think are being programmed into thinking like Elon Musk is bad, and like he was an owner of PayPal, so like he had access to people's information before. Um, so it's there's just a lot of little inconsistencies like that, like the whole Cybertruck contract that Tesla won. They were the sole bidder for it. They $400 million for a bunch of armored Cybertrucks for the military, and this was something that was actually awarded to Tesla under Biden. But Rachel Maddow came out and said that this was a Trump cronyism. And that like Musk like awarded it to himself or something like that. But this was done under Biden.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that. And I think one of my favorite or at least favorite, depending on your level of enthusiasm for just insanity, was Musk posted that chart, that table of all the different age brackets that were receiving Social Security benefits, and there were like literally 3 million within each bracket of like 110 to 120 and 120 to
Yeah.
130 or something like that.
So when you add them all up, there was 15 million between 100 and 149 years old in the system that hadn't been marked as dead in the Social Security system.
Yeah, I
Now
think there
that
were
doesn't mean
even
they're
three
all
that were over
receiving
200.
benefits, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like crazy that they haven't even been marked as dead in the system.
Yeah, and so like he publishes this publicly. Meanwhile, he's being criticized for a lack of transparency. And then like I saw some random person I'd never seen before showed up in my feed, and he's like, "Oh, like look at the way that he's analyzing this without fully understanding the data. Like Elon Musk just clearly doesn't know what he's doing. Like if this is his summary." And I was like this is just obviously not right. Like you could look at this table even if you don't know very much at all and just say like this is very clearly not right. And so it's just I don't know, there's all these armchair experts coming out and like criticizing, and it certainly is being politicized. I think it probably is having a slightly negative impact on the stock. We've seen some people canceling orders, and I saw some weird like TikTok of Cheryl Crow selling her Model S or something like that and donating the money to
Yeah.
NPR. So like you're going to get little bits of that, but there's so much noise right now, and at the same time, what really matters is autonomy, and we're like 3-4 months away from like a massive breakthrough on autonomy,
Mhm.
which is getting back to the original topic, why I got the Model X, and I'm just so excited to see where this goes. It's like, but there is so much drama and so little talk about the actual fundamentals right now.
We're 4 months away from Tesla introducing a new lower cost model or two. Do you think we get more than just a stripped down Model 3 and Y, like with cloth and no frills, or do you think we get the compact that we've been waiting for?
Um, I'm hoping there's like a variant of the Cybercab plus something else that they haven't even shown yet. I might be being a little bit greedy hoping for that much, but they did say launching multiple vehicles, including a new lower price, lower cost variants or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, so if they're going to be launching, the autonomous network, it would kind of make sense that they at least want to start in some sort of limited production of a Cybercab variant, maybe one that has a steering wheel for now. They really could do it with any of the vehicles. So might be just wishing a little bit, but I've been surprised at how little detail we have. Like we're still guessing.
Yeah.
And so like kudos to the Tesla team for keeping this under wraps for so long.
Mhm. Yeah, they do a great job keeping things under wraps. The robotaxi or the cybercab, when it came out, no one had seen what it looked like beforehand. We did see like something with like super heavy camouflage and like you know big coverings on it to really hide the shape of it, so nobody really knew what it looked like. Yeah, so the secrecy at Tesla is really strong, and I think it could be similar to the Cybercab. I know this is a controversial take.
Whoa.
So people are like, "Oh, the seats are too far back, and you got to change the wiring harness." And like, these are trivial things for Tesla. Come on, guys. Like, it could be a similar design to the Cybercab in some ways. Yeah, you do have to make some adjustments. Um, and 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 the reason I say this is like some Cybercab engineers said, well, they're not going to do something like the Cybercab for the rest of Tesla. Well, with all respect to all the hardworking people at Tesla, like they mainly know what's in their lane, and like if something's being kept under wraps, they're not going to hear about it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's like that, but I'm guessing for the compact car, they're not going to have like the super cool doors. Would you agree with
Yeah.
that, Matt?
Yeah, I would think so. Like the super cool doors would seem like one of the first things to go. There was somebody posted a video on the boring tunnel. There's actually like a sticker for the Vegas loop of like press here to enter the car, because a lot of people, when they see the flush handles, they don't know how to handle it.
Uh,
I think the cool doors on the cyber cab alleviate that pain point. So I wonder if that was a kind of
mm,
input that they've realized for that. But if you're just going with the normal like kind of variant on that, you don't want to pay for the cost of like self-presenting doors, then yeah, maybe you make that adjustment. I'm curious about this comment from Thomas Eves. What do you think of the India announcement? So as we're talking about new lower priced variants and the news of some hiring going on in India, could those things be related?
yeah, I think it's exciting. He just met with Modi, so less than a week away from his, it feels like less than a week away from his meeting Modi, uh, they're suddenly hiring people in Mumbai to at least sell some Teslas there and service them there. So maybe there's a deal where on a limited basis Tesla can sell some of their EVs without like the 100% duties that India charges on imported cars. Um, maybe there's some kind of deal in place for Tesla to make a gigafactory in India with a and making the compact in India as well. That would be like the most bullish way you could go from there. Or if they're making the cyber cab in India as well, that'd be pretty cool.
Maybe some mega packs, or like even a power, like to me it seems like India would be a great place for a power wall manufacturing facility. I'm not super familiar with the grid challenges they have there, other than there are significant grid challenges in
Mhm.
India, and I would imagine that there's a lot of use cases for some kind of smaller distributed power wall type um, installations, and mega packs of course too for the larger industrial facilities.
Mhm.
And that's something we didn't touch on yet either. Is the first mega packs are being produced right now in Shanghai. I saw that this morning. So there's some, I forget where those ones are being delivered to, but it's a little bit of a ramp up going on right now in Shanghai. But I think energy is going to be it's like the only potential saving grace that we might have in Q1, at least in the short term.
There was a very odd lawsuit that Tesla lost. I don't know if you heard about this, Matt.
I
So
don't think I
a
did.
company called Matthews has some kind of dry battery, um, dry dry cathode patent. I don't know if it's a patent, but they're selling batteries that are using the dry process that Tesla has a patent for.
From Maxwell
Um,
days.
yeah. Now maybe this Matthews company also has some patents, which is very strange. Um, I I think the demand overall for batteries is really high, and I don't think it necessarily hurts Tesla right now. Um, if they're not like the sole provider of this dry battery technology. So maybe let's talk a little bit about Lemonade. Looks like Lemonade's doing a little run into earnings.
Yeah,
Um,
so we were chatting a lot about Lemonade maybe 2 months ago, as it did the incredible run up from like 17, 18 to 53, I think was about the local high, and then it fell back down to the 31 or so dollar range. So yeah, it's we haven't lost enthusiasm along the way. We know most of our viewers are Tesla bulls, and maybe don't love hearing about Lemonade as much, but we are still very bullish on the stock. And even though we did do a pretty significant trim for our clients as it ran up, we didn't lose confidence, and in fact we upped our base case. So our previous base case valuation was $83 per share. That was when it was
mhm.
trading about $17 per share. after we got some new information on the Q3 results and the investor day, we raised our base case up to around $100 per share. But then we looked at another case of if management just does what they said they do, and the valuation we were coming up there was about $130 per share. So we still think that like there is a kind of silly amount of upside with the stock trading around $38, $39 right now. But yeah, it has recovered nicely from the kind of local low that it hit, and now it's rallying into earnings next week. So I'm very, very much looking forward to Lemonade's earnings next week. I think that one of the reasons the stock got hit pretty hard, part of it was just I think a little bit of retracement after what was a kind of insane rally, going up 3x in a month and a half. It's not surprising that there'd be some consolidation after that. But then they got hit with concern around the California fires as well. So my suspicion after digging into this for a while is that they're going to have a very strong Q4 report, better loss ratios than they've had in a long time is my expectation. Won't get into all the reasons for that right now, but we do think they're going to kind of surprise, and that might further diminish the bear case. And then we do expect them to address the wildfires in California, and basically that gives some indication that it'll be a very minimal impact to Q1. Mm-hmm. So if that happens, then we think that could give some further kind of juice to I don't want to say that there'll be a squeeze, but give some further. I was going to say fuel to the fire, but that's almost a worse analogy given the Palisade situation. But we think that might help give the rally some additional legs. And one of the things that is just always hiding in the background is the fact that the short interest is so high, and that's something that I know you've been taking a look at. So, what's your thought when you're looking at short interest on the back of these potential catalysts that we're seeing going into earnings?
Yeah, I don't know if suddenly there'll be a squeeze. Short interest is 30% of the shares roughly, which is really high. Tesla in 2019, the short interest was over 30%, I believe, or right around that. In November, Jim Chanos, he asked me a question on X, and I believe he's short Lemonade based off of his comments, but he may not be. And he asked me, what is Lemonade, and we'll break this down. What is Lemonade's combined ratio X their cost of acquiring new customers? It's called CAC. And so I did a little math, and I found that in the 9 months ending, and he provided me all the numbers I needed to do the calculation, which was so funny.
Just do it yourself, Jim. Like
I could have said that, but I did it for him. So their combined ratio was ex-CAC was 140%, ending Q3 of 2023, and all the way down to 120 in the 9 months ending Q3 2024. So there's a clear trend. And I think at some point it was like way above 160, their combined ratio. Was it ever above 200%?
Probably, yeah.
Essentially, you want it like 80% or lower, I think. That's what a good insurer would be over time. So there's a clear trend in Lemonade's combined ratio. And if they have the quarter that we think they could, their combined ratio could get under like 110% this quarter.
And importantly, that's excluding customer acquisition costs. Yeah. And a lot of the bears or the naysayers out there will say like, oh, you're just like, excluding random things and making up your own metrics. So why is it important to exclude customer acquisition cost at this point in the analysis of Lemonade?
Well, you put me on the spot, even though you're the numbers guy. So when you choose to acquire customers, it's a free choice you're making, and you're essentially going out into the market. You're spending money on ads, and you're trying to acquire new customers. And so it's an investment you're making in new customers. So it's a choice that Lemonade's making, but it's also a choice that all insurers make when they're choosing to do advertisements or find new people online. And for whatever reason, like all these Wall Street analysts have kind of forgotten that, this is the case. So right now, Lemonade's costs are pretty flat. They like grow slightly. So like their operating expenses x these customer acquisition costs grew at like 2% over the last couple of years, while their revenues grew at 50%.
I was worried
So
you were going to give the hail
yeah.
there. Don't do the
So
hail.
right now, right now it's kind of like this where they're losing money. So it looks like that, and eventually they're going to be making money. And so like I think they're at a similar place to where Tesla was in 2018, where Tesla was only making cars in Fremont. They needed to expand. Fremont, they couldn't make more cars at Fremont, at least at the time they felt they couldn't. They needed to expand or they were going to die. They were essentially losing $900 million a year. But we could go and watch drone videos of Tesla putting up the Shanghai factory. So we think Lemonade is a similar situation where we can see the overall growth. We can see them purposely spending money on advertising and marketing, and we can see that their insurance business, just kind of at the insurance factory level, is gross margin positive, just like Fremont, before they expanded into Shanghai, was gross margin positive.
Yeah, and maybe where the analogy breaks down a little bit is that when Lemonade or when Tesla is expanding a factory or building like the Shanghai plant, that from an accounting perspective, all those dollars that they're spending to build a new plant, that goes into capital expenditure. So it doesn't hit as an expense line item. It goes onto the
Mm,
balance sheet and then is depreciated off over time.
mm.
For a company like Lemonade, they don't have that. So as they're
They
trying
don't
to
have that
build up their,
luxury.
they don't
Yeah.
have that luxury. So they take the entire hit when they acquire a new customer up front. They take that entire, like CapEx type of spend up front as they acquire a new customer, but then they get those customer economics all the way into the future. So it's almost the opposite, like where a manufacturing company like Tesla, you take the hit up front and then you take the pain over time, or you don't take the hit up front, but you take the pain over time on your spending. For
Mhm.
Lemonade, you take the entire hit up front, but then you get the benefits over time. So that's why kind of looking at it, excluding customer acquisition cost or ex-CAC,
Mhm.
really makes a lot of sense to really understand what they're doing. And really importantly, uh, if we didn't have a lot of confidence around how good their customer economics would be, then we wouldn't be so hot on this company.
Mhm.
But we have multiple kind of like sources indicating that their their IRR or their ROI, essentially for I think it's IRR for their new customers that they're adding, is in like the 50% range, and then they're levering that up with debt, such that the capital that Lemonade is actually paying for these customer
Mhm.
acquisitions is like a triple digit IRR, which for anyone who knows finance, like that's insane. Um,
Triple digit means 100% or higher internal rate of return.
yeah, which is just completely crazy. Um, but like they've been saying this for years. They've got, and then they actually
They
dropped
show the math. They've proven it out.
and
They
they actually
show the
provided
math.
an Excel spreadsheet to all the analysts on Investor Day, which was kind of hilarious because we've known this for a while and have like kind of tested it. And we built our entire model with this understanding, which is I think different than other people who've analyzed it have. So you basically layer in these cohorts over time that have these triple digit IRRs essentially. And when you do that, it actually gives you really good indications of what the future is going to look like. So our model's been very accurate. And then on top of that, we have General Catalyst, who is actually financing against this, and they're looking at all these customer economics. And so, in my mind, it's like having a third party referee basically saying, yeah, like these customer economics that management is telling you, they're actually legitimate because we're lending against them, and they're putting out all these statements publicly, and that would like be fraud
Mm.
if this was not actually the economics that they're seeing. So for them to be spending tens of millions of dollars right now on very high IRR projects, when you start doing the math of what that indicates in the future, like the combined with like the fixed cost that they have, the improvement to the operating leverage in the later years, it's just like you're gonna get to this point, and then then at that point, when you're highly profitable and you're a bit more mature, then it's going to make a lot more sense to look at combined ratio and book value and all these kind of more traditional metrics that the legacy insurance companies and analysts would look at to evaluate a company. But when the company has negative net income right now and it has a negative combined ratio, obviously, like, you can't look at it the way that you would these other companies that have been around for 100 years. So that's my rant. Sorry.
That's awesome. And we're going to get to Grok here in a second. Grok's big balls. We'll get that going. But
Talking
what I'll say, what excites me about Lemonade, but also what the risk is whether they can add profitable car insurance customers. So that's the biggest question. That's the biggest risk. So I'll just remind people, if they haven't heard, Lemonade's really big in pet and renters insurance, and they really haven't tried hard to cross-sell their existing customers into car insurance. And they shared one example about this in Illinois, where they had pet and renters, but they also had car and homeowners insurance. And they really didn't push their customers on their app or via email to add car insurance. But 10% of their customers in Illinois, something like that, chose to add car insurance anyways, without them even pestering them. So just this quarter, so this is in January, this really won't hit for their fourth quarter, but they might talk about it on the earnings call, Matt. Just this quarter, they started cross-selling their car insurance to their pet renters and other customers.
Yeah, and so this is like free. This is like no customer acquisition cost.
Yeah, it's like pushing a button. You're not spending money on ads. It's like a app notification, right? At worst case, it's like maybe they send them 11 postcards over 11 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, well, and they've got a wait list. So I'm on the wait list. It's 700,000 customers long, which is a lot of low hanging fruit. So like, it's not even like they have to acquire, like, pay to buy all these customers. As they roll out to new geographies, they're only in a handful of states right now. A lot of their existing customers will opt to switch. And I can tell you, I just went through the car insurance process when I bought the Model X. And it feels like a ripoff, especially since I don't drive very many miles because I work at home. So I'm almost certainly going to switch to Lemonade, or at least, get a quote and see how that compares. But with the safety of FSD and, not driving very many miles, I'm almost certain that I'll get a lower price quote from Lemonade. So if that's the case, then I'll definitely be switching over, and they'll be winning even more of my business at no cost to them.
Full disclosure, right now, if we were to file our ADV for the next quarter, we are 13F. We are an over 1% owner of the shares of Lemonade, just as we were in September 30th of last year. So we do have a bias there, so let's talk a bit about Grok.
Let's rock the Grok. Did you get a chance to watch the presentation? I tried to stay up for it, and then I didn't, but I watched it early this morning.
Yeah, so it actually started when I was going to bed, and I had it on, and it ran while I was asleep. So I passed out. It ran while I was asleep. But then after I woke up, it was like the first thing I listened to was the presentation. And there were some good things from the presentation. We all heard about how they had this colossal effort to stand up Colossus or whatever they did at Memphis to get the first 100,000 NVIDIA H100s going. But they also revealed that in less time, they added a second 100,000 H100s to Memphis. So I think that was in like around 90 days, whereas the first one was done in 120 days. And
That is so ridiculous. Like
yeah,
the
so they did,
hardware
yeah,
team they have is
they essentially did it in 4 months, and the quote they got from other providers was they could do it in 18 to 24 months. So they did it themselves, and Elon said, if we waited the 18 to 24 months, it'd have been too late. Um, so that was very impressive. It was fun to see Elon kind of having a good time with other three other XAI employees, and they showed off some of the capabilities. Very strong benchmark scores, strong LM Arena scores, where you have one chatbot go against the other. Now these things can be gamed somewhat. Um, so I did a limited test of it, and it seemed very strong with some programming insights. Now I don't know if it's regularly going to create code that'll be error free and just work the first time out of the gate. Um, but I was impressed with things it noticed from my code without even me prompting it. So there's some complicated code I have for a project we're doing internally, and I had it look at the code. There's no customer data in the code, and just tell me, okay, what does this code do? And it gave me the best summary that any LLM has provided for what the code does. It even color coded the summary, which was cool. And then it talked about some shortcomings in the code, or potential shortcomings. So I was very impressed by that. So I'm curious to see where things shake out, and if it's going to be the best coder that I'm going to lean on. But um, what do you think about, before we continue on Grok, what do you think about Grok in your car? We heard from Tesla AI coming into this that they want to bring Grok to your car. So like when you're in your car, you can talk to Grok.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like an obvious extension. Seems kind of inevitable. I mean, the voice commands are really good, but that's obviously a pretty dumb system. That's, wouldn't have surprised us 5 years ago. The
Hopefully it's
capability
better
of,
than Siri though.
oh my gosh, Siri is still the absolute worst. Apple intelligence is an oxymoron. Um, yeah, but so like it seems like that is just a natural thing to do, and it will increase the overall user experience. But I don't think it's like some mind blowing thing that's going to change Tesla's earnings profile or anything like that. So I think it's just like a very obvious kind of next step that they'll be doing. Maybe not next step, but future step.
Mm. I wonder what fallout there'll be from this, because Grok 3 appears to be very capable. We'll see how things shake out over the next couple weeks. Um, if it is, still number one, uh, the and maybe Jordan, if you can, like somehow show the Grok 3 signature, which is kind of funny. Maybe I can present it on my screen. I don't know, but there someone did a remake of the Gavin.
Kevin Belson.
There it is. So it's Grok 3, Gavin Belson remake from a Silicon Valley show. And the company was called Hooli, I think after Google. Just hilarious, and he's like presenting it like this at the grand reveal. So basically his employees were calling him a big jerk or whatever.
After all that, you're censoring the D word.
I wonder if OpenAI is going to struggle with their next capital raise now. I would be, if I'm looking to invest in OpenAI, I'd be a little concerned. Maybe OpenAI already has a better model internally than Grok 3. We'll see. What are your thoughts on this, Matt?
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of take a broader lens at this. Like,
Okay.
obviously, the Grok 3 stuff was super impressive, and I think they've leapfrogged a lot of the abilities. And I think the thing that was most impressive to me was just how quickly they've done that. I mean, when you look at the kind of rate of improvement, they're moving really fast. I think a lot of that has to do with how quickly they're standing up new hardware, but there's also undoubtedly some things that they're doing with their training approach that's allowing them to kind of leapfrog so quickly. But I'm not going to just jump on the Elon bandwagon and say, okay, XAI is winning and Grok's going to be the best like from here on out, and it's going to be like solving Nobel Prize worthy physics solutions in the next year. Like that, I can definitely see that happening, but I'm not going to be a partisan about it and say that will happen. What I find so interesting is like how much this is improving our lives. You told me today to subscribe to ChatGPT Pro and try the deep research. And I was blown away by that. So I gave it a prompt to do a research report on this company that we were looking at today. Set it to go. I went down to grab some lunch, came back upstairs. I thought it would like run for 2-3 minutes or something like that. I didn't time it, but it must have been 15 minutes or so, and checked 30 some different sources, compiled it all together in a really great report with all the different citations in there. And it significantly sped up the research that I was doing. And so it's just like thinking of how much better it's going to make me as an analyst looking at new companies and evaluating different investment opportunities. Like it's going to allow me and us to do a whole lot more. So regardless of how which individual model ends up winning out over time, or some, I don't know, cohort of many different ones with different specialties, like this is going to be an amazing thing for the economy. And as an investor, I think this is one of the macro theme that I believe in almost more than anything else is like GDP growth is going to be a lot higher in the future than it was in the past. And I think that's going to break a lot of the old kind of rules of thumb that I was taught about investing, when I went to undergrad of like, oh, like stocks will return 8% a year because that's what they've done since 1925. Like literally that's where that came from. It's just like, well, if you take the average from 1925 to present, it's like 8%. So like you just use that as your estimate for what it will be in the next 50, 100 years. And to me, that is not going to work because you're going to have much higher efficiency and an acceleration of technology. So I think the returns in broader markets are going to be a lot higher than that. And there's going to be also an increase in disparity between winners and losers. So like there are going to be some companies that, 100x or more, and then a lot of companies that just get disrupted along the way. So that's why I think this is, as an investor, just such an exciting moment. So bit more of a higher level thought for me, but like I think it's such an important time that we're living in, or recognizing this time that we're living in is so important for potential investors.
So what Matt's talking about is ChatGPT's deep research that's included if you pony up the $200 a month to OpenAI. So we're going to get into a specific example about that in a moment. But what I want to share with you now is Matt's time is extremely valuable. It's very valuable, and you look at like tearing into a new company. Maybe you're gonna read or listen to the last 4 earnings calls. You're gonna go through the last 4 earnings reports and maybe the last 5, and then plus some. That takes a lot of time. Even if you're listening at two times speed to the earnings calls, each of those could be an hour long. So that's 2 hours, even at 2 times speed. If you read them, it's faster, but that's very exhausting in addition to looking at their presentations and all the quarterly reports.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 2 years ago, when I first started, doing this type of research for Halter Ferguson, that was exactly what I would do for companies that looked interesting enough to look into a little bit further. I'd listen to about 2, maybe 3 earnings reports. If they had an investor day, I would definitely do that on top of those earnings reports. Then take the time to kind of spread all the financial information and kind of get an idea of where the different areas of pockets of growth might be for the company, and do some modeling. And it would take like minimum 10 hours probably to do like a decent look at a company. I think it was probably averaging between 10 and 20 hours to do like a basic kind of first look. And usually from there, there'd be additional let's look at this opportunity, and let's look at industry reports and kind of commentary on this particular
Customer
thing.
reviews. Yeah.
Customer review. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we don't do is just like take management's word for it, right? So I'll get right into the deep research example we have, and we're throwing a little bit of shade. But I think we're not going to invest in this company now, right, Matt? That I'm about to talk about.
The one that we were looking at today?
No, the one that I first did with deep research.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
We were looking.
Transformer one.
Yeah, so we were looking at Eaton, and they're a provider of transformers. They're not the only provider, but they do produce like the phase three phase transformers that are really hard to make. They're very supply constrained. There's been a shortage of things. Like one of the things they've had shortages of is some kind of resin, some kind of magic resin. That was a thing. But the crazy thing was, we asked deep research about it, and before we did, Matt was super excited because management on their investor presentation that they share quarterly, they had this thing where they showed a backlog of $1.5 trillion, trillion with a T and an R.
And it was labeled backlog.
Labeled backlog on the investor presentation. And, if you take their word for it without knowing any other context, that's a really big number. And that sounds like, okay, well, they need to build a bunch of transformer factories because they're going to have as much demand as they want. And in fact, they are building a transformer factory. I think it's in North Carolina. And that's going to be built in 2027. So like there's a wait for new supply to come online. So that's an issue. But then we asked deep research about it, and it gave all this context around supply shortages with transformers, how hard they are to make. There's a lot of testing that you have to do to make sure it works right before it comes out of the factory. But it said their backlog was like around $12 billion. 12 billion, so like less than 100th of what they had on the slide. So it's like, okay, deep research, explain to me. They're claiming their backlog is $1.5 trillion. What is this? Explain this discrepancy. Who's right? Are you sure? So it didn't like immediately cave and be like, oh, you're right, it's 1.5 trillion because you're the user and I want to be nice to you. No, it's like it actually found the context where Eaton shared in the past where that number comes from. And where that number comes from is a tally of all the projects, I think bare minimum in the US, that have a value of $1 billion or more. But it may not be projects that Eaton has won. And that really blew me away that it figured that out right away. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I was trying to find the thing to share. For some reason, it's not letting me share my entire screen, so I'll just read this. But like on this slide in their latest quarterly report, it has this $1.7 trillion backlog. It has in there 40% win rate and 11% cancellation rate. So like all these like I don't know how to interpret that other than to say that like they're getting like a very significant portion of those with very little cancellations. And so I'm like, all right, even if they're significantly exaggerating this, like they're gonna at a minimum raise their prices based on this huge amount of demand that they're seeing. Mm-hmm. And it turns out it was just like the management BSing a little bit and trying to exaggerate a little bit about the magnitude of the opportunity. And maybe there's like a reasonable way that you could say, oh, it's like a proxy for growth in our TAM or something like that. But at a minimum, it's disingenuous to label it backlog. Yeah. So yeah, this saved a lot of time to like it would maybe another hour or two to like find that particular part where management said that, and instead it was just like, okay, like let's stop the train. Sure, they're gonna be growing, and like we've been interested in a company manufacturing transformers for a long time. So that was what kind of got us interested about this, expanding capacity, because that is a big constraint. But it was like that it was not looking nearly as juicy as it sounded at first.
Yeah. It may or may not be a good investment. We don't know, but it's something that, raised serious concerns. Um, so we're getting value from AI. It seems like every other week there's like a major win of us getting value from AI, but just today, so it's like every week now for us. Um, so encourage you all to play around with it and learn to use these large language models. Maybe even consider, if you can afford it, trying out the pro subscription for GPT. We'll be checking out the pro version of Grok as well. But I've heard that the research version of it isn't as good yet as Chat GPT, and we heard that from Carpathy today. So
Yeah.
hopefully Elon didn't hear that.
Yeah, he's a. I think it's really important for users or like just people in general to not just take Elon's word for everything.
Mhm.
Not that what they're doing isn't super impressive, but like one of the things that I was even looking at was in one of the charts, kind of comparing the model results. They had O3 mini, but they didn't have regular O3. So it did a little bit of digging, and it sounds like the regular O3 results weren't published or weren't public. But it's almost certainly the case that the regular O3 actually outperformed Grok 3. So like that's just the thing to keep in mind. It's not like this is the brand new state of the art and OpenAI is completely screwed now. They've still got a great product. This deep research thing today just blew me away. Their voice control too is great. Like I was actually one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is how can you kind of continually self-improve so that you're kind of staying on top of things. And I realized that like when I get ready in the morning, I could actually just like have a conversation with the voice just as I'm like, brushing my teeth or getting dressed, and just be like, tell me about this company. And it's just another way to absorb some information a little faster. So I think the more we can kind of change our habits or change our workflows to adapt to these amazing new tools that we have, it's only going to increase your value as a worker and help you make better decisions.
Yeah, I'm impressed by the voice tool they have as well. It gives shorter answers, and you do have to be careful how you talk with it, because if you're slow like me and you pause like that, like it's gonna jump in right away, and then you're like interrupting it and like kind of having to fight it a little bit. But there's some workarounds to that. One thing I used it for was to quiz my daughter on multiplication tables. So it would randomly choose like multiples of 6, up to, from 1 to 12, times 6 basically. And it would ask her, and then she would give an answer. It would tell her if she was correct and what the right answer was, and then it would ask the next question. So that was a handy thing, and I'm using it as well. So I think we'll wrap it up there. Looking forward to hearing more about your new ownership experience, Matt. And you are the uniquely Matt Smith of rebellionaire.com, not the actor.
Not the actor, despite what Grok 3 thinks. I was hoping that would be fixed in Grok 3, but no. For months now, every time I ask for a picture of myself, it thinks that I'm Matt Smith, the actor from Doctor Who. And
you did ask Grok 3 to look at your PP so that it would get your image right, but that's profile pic, if people don't know that.
Obviously. What else would it be?
It looked at your PP, but it still did Matt Smith, the actor.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the weird things with AIs in general is like it. I had this with the voice today too. like says okay, and then it like redoes the image and gives me the exact same thing with the wrong Matt Smith. And then I try, I was like, why did you give me that? And it's like, oh, I don't have the ability to look at your profile pic. I was like, okay, well, why you should have told me that before you generated an image. And same thing with the voice with ChatGPT this morning. It like gave me some answer and then it told me that I couldn't look up the answer. And I was like, well, how did you look this thing up from February of 2025 if you can't search the web? And it didn't really have a good answer for it. So you still do have to be careful. There are some hallucinations
Yeah,
or just, you know, like
you need to
pitfalls.
discern. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll share a quick example. We use deep research to try to understand like the Model 3 changeover and some other changeovers that have happened. And it thought that the changeover in China was like a day for the Model 3 or like a half a week. And maybe it was, but you know, according to Roland Percher today, there was like a 6 week or more drop for the Model 3 in China last time, and that was held up as from ChatGPT's deep research as a model thing. So even after we heard that, we were skeptical. So like you still need to bring your skepticism at times. You can't be the eternal optimist. You know that can get you run over at times.
Yeah. Well, this was a good chat. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I think we'll end it there, but thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll do this again next week.
All right, bye for now.